swear.
Hey, kid.
That's
what
it.
time is that?
Time is it indeed.
It's late in the day.
15. How did this happen?
The future
It's getting a little more crazy as we go forward. Sorry about that little gap, everybody. We were having some technical difficulties.
Now we know that the future can be late now.
Especially if
It's a
we're
very
right.
interesting concept.
Anyway, we were noticing that our levels were
we're
not
back.
going from our wonderful studio out to the internet. And
yes.
it took us till now to find out why. So
And you know what it
welcome
was?
back.
It was a malfunction of the butt. B-U-T-T. Its default changed, and we had to reset it.
All right. But hey, let's act like
Everything's
nothing
normal.
bad
Hey,
happened.
we never have any
Everything's
technical
normal.
difficulties.
Yeah. And it's so weird. Like you sit down, you haven't changed a thing. You've tested everything.
It's hot,
heard
man.
everything,
It's hot.
And
I'm convinced
there's
that the weather
one question
weather
mark,
has an
like,
effect on the
making
technology.
It not work.
Yes, it's the weather. We
It's the
had
weather.
we had to reboot a couple times. The fans are going full blast because we're off the grid. We can't use air conditioning, and hence everything's a little warmer than it might normally be. Kind of reminds me of my childhood. Well, actually, it was worse then because have you ever been a summer in Philadelphia without air conditioning?
Can't say that I have. No.
Living near the oil refineries, the wafting of the smell and the warmth, and it just makes a memory that is etched deeply into my nostrils.
You know, it's really time to start the show, honey.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm reflecting on.
Would you like to say hi to Bobby?
Bobby?
For our whole
Of
listening
course.
audience?
Yes. Hi, Bobby. Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah. Beautiful day.
And I imagine it's a little, with the natural air conditioning that you have in San Francisco, it's a little cooler.
It cools off at night. Yeah.
Oh.
It's at least 20 degrees less than you there, I guess. Wow.
Yeah. It's a challenge to keep yourself in a good mood when you're feeling hot. But it's my challenge right now. And if I seem to get a little irritable, let me know. Okay?
And if your levels are hot, I'll let you know.
Gab says it's even cooler in Jersey right now. Cooler. Don't make me mad.
Finally. Well, we know our friend Gabby had to suffer through the heat wave last week. So
I know, but you see that torrential rain that
Sympathy.
they had? My God. That must be the satisfying result of that. We don't get that at all here. We get the heat and then, if we're lucky, a respite for a day or two and hopefully not a forest fire.
yeah, hopefully. Well, I like to start the day with a swim if possible.
That is one of the great benefits here is that we've got the most incredible swimming pool in Boulder Creek.
Yeah.
Just it's one of our best kept secrets.
Yeah, so we're not going to tell you guys either.
We like our own lane, you see. It's an Olympic-sized heated outdoor pool. Very nice.
Yeah. Anybody who comes to visit will definitely let you know, but we're not going to alert the media, okay?
We got a couple of guests coming in, not this week, but next week and the week after that. And I'm really excited as we'll be exploring some of our favorite topics in more in depth at both of these shows. And this week, you get Bobby, his son, and I to really look at the news and our version of deconstruction of what's going on.
It started. Whoa, what's that, Mrs. Future?
Well, I thought there was some deconstruction going on.
Oh, yes. You turn on my reverb, will you? Yeah, thank you very much. One of the big stories this week has to do with all this technology. It's a piece called Cheap Fakes.
Okay, now we're talking about the stories that Al likes to post
In
for the
our-
show
in
for
our
everyone
list.
to read on
It's the very bottom of
drfutureshow.com.
the second collection of today's notes. Cheap fakes, videos, and the phrase itself is coming center stage, especially after that hilarious thing we called the presidential debate a few days ago.
I did not find it hilarious. I found it to be a bit of a snore. But I'll take your word for it. You were laughing.
You know, it had its funny moments. I have a story on that from a body language point of view.
Okay.
You know, looking at the body language of the candidates. I thought that was quite fascinating. Mm-hmm. So let me give you up to date what's happening with cheap fakes and the bid for presidency.
Okay, what's happening?
Well, cheap fake videos of Biden have been edited, taken out of context, and to make him look stupider and less physically fit than he even is now. These are inundating social media. and naturally being used for a political spin.
I think that was more important before the debate. I think a lot of people were feeling like the debate was the chance to debunk all of that fake media. Only people who are already diehard Biden fans were convinced that he was pulling it off just fine. Most people felt that the inability to complete sentences was concerning.
Yeah.
Commander-in-Chief. And we know he's a good guy. We know
Yeah.
he's a smart guy. We know he's had a lifetime in office. We know he's got a lot of people around him who he
that's the
relies
thing.
on.
That's the thing. I think what we have with Biden is a team. We have a team of people that are actually running a lot of the system. And they're probably getting the most they can out of him. I don't think he's being manipulated like some puppet, like many of our friends do.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to separate the deep fakes from the real
we're back
concerns
to the
that we
media.
have about this man.
Yeah, well, that's the
Right.
other thing, is that the cheap fakes allow you to easily play with context and understanding a story. You can make somebody look brighter, you can make them look stupider, you can play with their demeanor, you can selectively look for sound bites and juxtapose them with other sound bites that had nothing to do with it but sound like what you always wanted to believe. All these sorts of things are now being done. And so you really can't trust anything you're hearing, including us right now. It all could be manufactured.
Well, you've been manufacturing our voices with AIs.
Yeah, and let's face it, when we're talking, we're manufacturing our thoughts out of thin air already. So it's all following what we're doing anyway in terms of creating conversation and languaging. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be used for lies and deception. But like language, the cinematic language and visual audio symbologies that we're all playing with, thanks to our smartphones, are developing a languaging system that, for better or for worse, is the species languaging system. It's working everywhere in the world.
So what are you trying to say? Like
So
we're
what I'm
getting
saying
better
is
at
that-
communicating
what I'm saying is that
outside of our language?
The cheap fakes, I don't think it's totally bad. I think that what it's doing is helping to evolve our species languaging system so that it's more coherent, that we
Right.
need to deal with noise in order to know how to clean it up.
Absolutely. It's amazing how much the problems of technology are really the growing pains of having these tools work better to meet our needs. And sometimes new needs emerge. Probably before the era of computers, nobody would have suspected that we would need to program computers to sort out which camera images are real and which ones aren't. That's something you don't imagine until it happens.
I like to imagine scenarios. I personally enjoy making up stories.
I know you do.
And I also enjoy reading stories.
Yeah, I
and
think your
being a news
stories are
type of
obvious
guy.
fakes. I wouldn't call them like deep
Obvious
fakes.
fakes.
They're fictional.
Yeah? Well, what about this MIT robot that designed to pack your groceries? Is that
Is this-
fake?
I don't know. Is it? Tell me.
RoboGrocery? It's
What-
called RoboGrocery.
Is this another link? This
It is another
on
link,
this
yeah.
Okay. Let's
No,
Yeah, it's a
I
link
beg to
there.
differ. I'm not into simply fact. I'm interested in enlivening the conversation with new and exciting information that of things that are happening around us. And one of the things is robots. I really think it's amazing. I think the robot revolution will free us from the shackles of slavery once and for all.
We'll finally have programmable slaves, huh?
It takes it away. It takes it from suffering of our species to supporting us by our machines. Okay, specifically, I wanted to mention that there's a self-checkout robot design coming out of MIT. It looks like the first part of this robot, it's a system really. The first part of it is the robot that packs your bags. And apparently it took a lot of time and effort to be able to figure out how to teach RoboGrocery how to use computer vision and soft robotic grippers to bag a whole bunch of items into a grocery bag, something we do every day.
How long did it take?
It started off rather poorly, but it got better as the MIT researchers studied its behavior. To test the system, they placed 10 objects that the robot didn't know about onto a grocery conveyor belt, right? And that included like grapes, bread, kale, muffins, and crackers, as well as more solid objects, more easier ones for it to find, like meal boxes, soap cans, ice cream containers. So the vision kicks in first, and it detects the objects as they come down the conveyor belt. And the vision system looks how big they are and their orientation on the belt. And then in comes this new thing called the grasper, and it's called soft robotics. It's really soft. It's like a rubbery material. Imagine a couple of fingers coming down and squeezing a grape. It can touch grapes. It has little pressure sensors. And when it squeezes, it can tell how much to use to pick it up.
Haptics.
Yeah, haptic feedback, I guess you could say. How delicate it is. And other items, not so much. You have a soup can. It doesn't need that kind of sensitivity. And it knows what to put on the bottom of the bag. Like you want the heavier items on the bottom of the bag, like the cans and stuff like that, and the chips on the top, eggs on the top, right?
Yeah, eggs.
Yeah.
On the top, you want eggs, bread, chips, and bananas.
Yeah, I think everyone knows bananas, right? So the robot was able, they had to teach it what goes on the bottom, what goes on the top, and it seems to get pretty good at that. They say that they've got it working now, but that there's plenty of room for improvement and upgrades and a better grasper system and better imaging. They're looking at this on an industrial level, though. Not just your shopping bags at Safeway, but an industrial recycling plant where it's dealing with thousands of items coming down the conveyor belt, and all of which needs to be sorted and placed in the right other conveyor belt or bin or robot coming to pick it up or whatever. The sorting capacities.
I love sorting things, especially recycling. Send it all to me.
We'll be right back.
All right. Thanks, RoboGrocery.
Burden of a long, expensive lease? Your solution is Satellite Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue near downtown Santa Cruz. Satellite offers private offices, meeting and conference rooms, even co-working by the hour, day, week, or month. Schedule a tour at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for a 20% discount off your first reservation.
Hi, I'm Nancy, the tasting room manager at Bargetto Winery in Soquel, where we've been producing award-winning wine since 1933. Our tasting rooms are open daily at our Soquel location at 3535 North Main Street or in Monterey at 700 Cannery Row. We host weddings, receptions, and special events. Go to bargetto.com to find out more or call 831-475-2258. There's always something happening at Bargetto Winery.
When you need help managing your estate, call on the Angel.
Hello, I am attorney Angel Hess, and I am ready to help. Whether you need a will or a trust, a guardianship or a conservatorship, or if you are managing the financial affairs of a loved one, I will help you with over 7 years' experience working in estate planning and probate fields.
When you need help, call on the Angel, attorney Angel L. Hess at santacruzlegal.net.
The Hook is California's first ever cannabis outlet. 100% locally owned and operated, we're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. We believe that everyone should have access to fairly priced cannabis, so we work hard to get it to you for 30 to 50% less than the other guys. If you're 21 or older with a valid ID, visit us in Capitola or in Watsonville today. We're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. Check out our website, hookoutlet.com, for deals and stay groovy.
Oh, I'm not having a very good day.
She believes that technical difficulties are plaguing us today. And
they're certainly
will affect
plaguing
everything.
me. I certainly could use
it
a
could be related.
dedicated broadcaster robot to give me the day off.
Yes, well, I trust that the technical difficulties are the way in which the machines from the future are contacting us today.
Oh.
And they're doing it through our links.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, did you know that today is World UFO Day?
No. That
really?
explains
Did you
a
know?
lot.
Yeah, I know, right? And here it is. That's what they're telling us. Go to the first story, you humanoids.
All right, tell us about World UFO Day.
Thank you. Okay, let's click on that. Okay. From India Today was covering it the best.
Oh,
Go
India
figure.
Today. Oh, so this isn't even about our Congress coming clean with their...
No, not American
huh?
politics. No,
Oh,
this is
old school
world.
UFO.
This is world event.
This is
is
people
world
seeing unexplained
UFO Day
phenomenon.
today.
Okay.
Observed annually on July 2nd.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's all things UFO today. So keep that in mind as you experience your day.
If you see some weird aliens, just realize
It's
they
normal.
have the day off.
Yeah, because everyone is thinking about it today. And when the group mind is focused, shall we say, it gets crazy like that.
It's like magic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, whatever it means to you. To me, it enriches your knowledge about lots of various topics. Even if you believe or not believe that aliens exist, it doesn't matter because it's all part of the mind foo of the day.
No, isn't there a whole new Netflix series about an illegal alien that's a guy from another planet that is having to escape immigration services? Illegal Aliens has a whole new spin.
Men in Black. What does Men in Black have to tell us about the border situation?
Right.
You know, how can these sci-fi ideas apply to reality?
Well, in terms of immigration and walls, we learned from Germany that walls are meant to keep people in, not out. But hey,
that's but a bump for as far as I'm concerned. To me, I like to think that evolution is a biological one, not just our mental bodies. And along those lines, if you think of biology and walls, I think membranes. Membranes. That's what biology uses for separating things. Now, maybe it would work on the level of humans too. So if you start to imagine walls as being smart, that's getting closer. They're Anduril Corporation, and those are working in that direction. And smarter things is good. But alive, the next step would be get smart and alive. And when it becomes alive, it becomes... Now, maybe it's possible...
prognosticating?
Well, I'd say it's possible that we can create membranes that aren't alive, as we do it all the time. It doesn't necessarily have to be alive initially, but can use a lot of the ideas of aliveness, like membranes, for borders, for thinking about borders.
Okay.
We're going in that direction anyway. We all have these passes now that allow you to go over faster. If you think of a cell wall, it's allowing certain nutrients to go in and certain other things not to go in. It's very intelligent about how it allows the flow of chemicals in and out of the cell.
You know, you're stimulating in me something that may not be related, and yet it does have to do with membranes, but it's about things that Robert F. Kennedy has been saying in some of his recent media coverage. For instance, he is very interested in solving some of our current problems, such as immigration, with some very novel solutions that involve AI and blockchain and issuing passports to every single person in the country who would like to use them. And he's running into a lot of resistance with implementing any of these futuristic ideas because, of course, the people that are currently running those things have their own agendas.
Yeah, you've got the entrenched
interest. They don't
interest.
really want to clean it up.
Yeah, that's it. You have entrenched interest, and you have the new ones that are coming in. And certainly one of the most entrenched is the whole economic model.
But as far as membranes, in the future, we are going to have more efficient solutions. We are not going to be fighting over stupid things like who gets to come in and out of the border. It just seems to me that what's going on right now is a big fight over tax money. And with the national budget being so completely insane and out of control, we know that the fight over who gets control of the tax money is really a fight over the power of the future. But eventually, we're going to automate all that stuff, and it's going to make things easier, not harder for all of us humans. I really strongly believe that.
I'm glad you do, because I kind of head in that direction myself. It could go either way. I think what we think about and what we'd like to create is important. What you do think matters because it adds to that particular possible future.
Sure. The planetary group mind is kind of a democracy.
Kind of.
Everybody gets to put out their own vote of their own thoughts.
And it does work, and we are organizing as a species. Now, if microbes can organize, humans can too.
Fair enough.
Right? And we do.
Who's going to stop us?
Well, ourselves. I think that the whole nationalism debate is stopping us. It's not understanding how we're one species and how it all connects and how we operate as an organism. None of that is discussed or understood or perceived, and national interests are considered. And to a certain extent, that's good. It's like in the human body, the kidney needs to defend its territory, as does the heart or the liver. They're all unique organisms in and of themselves. But to operate together, it's another level of complexity that I think we're just figuring out how to do. And right now, we're dealing with a little of internal chemistry with our particular organ in the United States.
We are?
Yeah, if you think of the U.S. as an organ, it has a role to play in the planetary species organism.
Yeah, a lot of people like to think so.
Yeah, it's true, and it's important to think about. What role do we play? Are we the circulatory system? Are we the brain? Are we the muscle?
You're talking about the United States?
Yeah.
Maybe we're the freckles. We're the freckles on the face of the planet.
Mrs. Future, I appreciate your humor, but we must think deeper on this.
Oh, okay.
We need gravitas, more gravitas. We're America.
Okay.
The world's policemen. And we're the melting pot where people from around the planet have come, and we get to know everybody from everywhere, and that's who we are. We're not just from here, even though that's important too.
Well, we're the country that first eliminated slavery at the level of our laws.
Yeah.
There's a lot of countries that haven't caught up yet, and a lot of our people don't even realize the freedom that they have in protesting is part of the elimination of slavery and giving rights to the people. What are some of the other great claims to fame?
Well, supposedly we don't have kings.
Oh, well, not if you listen to the Democrat commentary on the most recent Supreme Court ruling about presidential immunity. I did read Lawrence Lessig making some intelligent comment because I was really trying to figure out why they were saying that the president would be king. And I know that the way that the judges think is really much more legalistic than that. And what their very fine scalpel of discernment is actually looking at is whether or not the actions of a campaigning president are presidential actions that are protected. I guess that in the past, presidential actions were considered private, and maybe now they're considered public, or now they're considered part of his presidential responsibility. But it's a very murky issue.
Yes, murky indeed. Imagine keying into how it feels to be running for president, and yet you are and were the president, and let's face it, people treat you that way wherever you go. So if you both could use a newfound presidential immunity capability to win, wouldn't you? So, looking at it from an alpha male's president's point of view, what does it feel like viscerally in the moment to win and keep winning? Much like a king, I would say. Try taking the king's position for a moment. Feel it. It's good to be king.
Well,
when you feel the kingness. And I think we're all capable of doing this. I think Shakespeare showed how important it is that we're able to empathize with these various characters, that we can feel what the king is dealing with. And it does feel good to be king. I think it has biological basis. It's feeling on top of it. It's the alpha male feeling. This is a real thing. And it's really clear in being in charge and knowing how to do certain things that others don't, or thinking about things when it could cut through a lot of bull like a Gordian knot. There's a feeling of power. It's a self-assurance that we're all capable of experiencing. There's nothing wrong with that. I think.
So you think the idea of calling that being king is really just
it's a feeling.
It's a euphemism to talk about power.
It's a state of power,
a state of self-empowerment and ability to enact your own will.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all capable. You know, the big thing these days is to discover your superpowers.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of related to that. You could discover your lordship, that side of yourself, as well as the less admiring parts of your being. Acknowledge the whole thing. But on UFO today, we're looking at recognizing your alpha self.
Could you elaborate a little?
It's UFO World Day, and it's important to see yourself as your own superhero.
Okay.
All right, to really be you. And that's okay, because that is your superpower, really being yourself, your authentic being. Right, so.
Seems to me that's something that has more to do with Pride Month than it does with World UFO Day.
Oh, do
Being
you?
your
Well,
authentic
explain
self
that to
as
me,
part
Mrs.
of
Vita.
World UFO Day? I don't.
Well, you understand the whole issue of identity too, right? That is something that people have a hard time with these days, whether it be sexual or political.
Oh.
Liberals and Democrats aren't what they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Male and female aren't what they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's going on here? I think clarity will happen on that issue too.
Well, we can hope.
Part of it is our ability to instantly travel using our technology to anywhere in the world in real time. The ability to have phones that allow us to use avatars. The ability to have multiple identities online. All these things are training us that we're multidimensional beings that can have many personas. For example, consider the Galactic I Am meditation.
I am vibration, I am timeless, I am unity, I am activating, I am resonant, I am galactic, I am radiant, I am divine.
And why limit yourself to just one?
I am lunar, I am magnetic, I am planetary, I am balanced, I am organized, I am connected, I am inspired, I am in harmony, I am integrity, I am perfect, I am manifestation, I am dissolving, I am releasing, I am liberated.
Your basic expanded identity.
That's a very advanced thought.
I think of expanded identity along the lines of expanded communication. Look how easy it was for us to adapt to having long-distance communication anywhere on the planet, anytime, in high quality. It's interesting how easy it is to feel like you're talking to someone anywhere in the world and how easy we got used to doing that. It's become normalized very quickly. I mean, 100 years ago, it would be a miracle.
Sure. Well, technology is magic, isn't it?
Yeah. Politics, religion, all these things we're going to get some clarity on, and it's going to happen fairly fast.
Fairly fast.
Fairly fast. And now time for Space News.
Space news. Do tell.
Do you like space news?
I love space news.
Yes.
I love looking at
Okay.
138 UFO sightings in California.
Well, that's for starters. Being on UFO Day, how many sightings did we have in this area?
Is that just today?
I don't know.
No,
I
saw
haven't read
this is
article.
All right, remember, this article is coming from one of the UFO capitals of California, the Mojave Desert.
Okay.
Right? They claim that 138 registered sightings of UFOs have happened since January across the Golden State. And of those 138, 52 were explained as planes, rocket launches, Starlink sats, or space junk. That leaves 86 that remain question marks. So 86 so far this year. Big one was in Los Angeles. 25 people reported sightings over Los Angeles. In mid-June, there was a shiny, bright, round disc that flew really fast over LA. And there was some kind of aura or haze around it.
And 25 people, huh?
And then people in Malibu saw a bright white light moving really fast to the northeast, faster than anything they could imagine. Also, reddish lights flying in formation over LA.
Wow.
Number 2 is a part of the state called Santa Maria. You know where that is?
Not exactly.
It's a little south of San Luis Obispo, down on the central coast.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right, that area there. Yeah. Down there, it was kind of interesting because they had a sighting of a cigar, flying cigar.
Really?
Which is really interesting to me because we have a winery along the coast here in Bonnie Doon, and apparently a cigar-shaped UFO was seen over that winery years ago, and it became emblazoned in the label of one of their wine types.
Really?
A cigar UFO, the Bonnie Doon vineyards, yeah.
It became cigar wine.
Local UFO lore. Yeah. Figaro or something like that, I think it's
Le cigar, something like that.
Chablis of some sort.
Unidentified flying wine.
And also a lot of strange UFO sightings. Sacramento.
Oh, well, everybody's pretty unidentified in Sacramento.
Yeah, could it be politics and UFOs connection?
Don't look up.
No. 5 sightings were shared. Residents saw weird lights, triangle-shaped. Triangles keep coming back all the time. Triangle-shaped craft and square ones. And glowing green orbs.
Okay.
I haven't seen any of those. Though the AI did push out something like that to me yesterday when I was...
A glowing green orb?
I was prompting for blobs, color cycling blobs that look like they're coming from biology, floating in the air. And it came close to having these green glowing hovering orbs, that are apparently the sightings in Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah, so my mind sees a connection there.
Green glowing orbs in our political
Green
capital.
glowing auras around the orbs. Teenage kids were picking up a package and they saw specks of green lights above an apartment complex. And then the 2 square objects appeared out of nowhere, just hovering square objects. They had with a green glow aura and a green dot right in the middle of them. It's like somebody's focusing plane for an Oculus 3. I mean, are we just part of somebody's VR game? What's going on here?
Could be.
Simulation hypothesis. Yes, Bobby, yeah.
Sounds like, those have LiDAR on your iPhones, and it does, 3-dimensional, and it puts out this green grid. If you can see it, but you can't, but it is this green grid. So I don't know, maybe somebody had a Vision Pro or something. The green dots, I don't know.
Or maybe the kid had his VR gear on and forgot for some reason that he was wearing it. That's when it gets really weird. You forget to take off your goggles.
And you can't tell the difference.
You can't tell the difference. It's designed so that augmented reality is so good, it's seamless. It's a seamless interface between what you're seeing in your goggles and reality. Augmented reality could get that good with probably not that far, like maybe 8K technology, 16K for sure. 16K would be as good as the Retina.
Well, I'll tell you, some of these other UFO sightings sound really interesting. The one in Indio and the one in Coachella Valley.
Yeah.
It's nonstop interesting, yeah. It's true.
So apparently there's in near proximity to a military installation around 29 Palms.
Right.
There have been, this has always been a prime UFO UAP sighting. Well, duh, I guess, right? Military bases. They definitely have a higher than average UFO sighting percentage, I'd say.
You think? You think the military folks are seeing more UFOs than everyone else?
Well, I just think that with reverse engineering, to the degree that the military have their own vehicles.
They have enough new toys to play with that they're going to be more interested in the topic. Yeah, I suppose if I had some anti-gravity boots, I'd be playing with them. I'd imagine that things could be very different if some of those technologies got out.
Yeah.
But the sightings were from a trio of NASA scientists claimed that they were on a stargazing trip on an official observation hill when they spied an anomaly in the night sky. So these are NASA scientists that saw the 3 of them. So
yeah, some credibility there, you'd hope.
There's some credibility there.
Yeah.
What about this huge dark V-shaped craft moving across the western sky over the San Jacinto Mountains?
I'd like to see that. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of this stuff is being captured now in people's cell phones. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see it integrated so that we could I think there's some people that are aggregators and are kind of doing that with collections, compilations on YouTube. We're already seeing this start to happen.
Oh, there you go. Here's the 8th sighting article is about some that were in San Jose.
Right around the corner here.
2 San Jose UFO incidents. Late June, shortly before sunrise. A stationary bright light. Oh, you don't think that could have been planet Venus? I thought it could be a star or a planet until I noticed it changing and moving. So there you go. In San Jose, a bright star was changing and moving.
You remember Robert Anton Wilson?
And then it vanished.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, he wrote about UFOs quite a bit, and he had often wondered about this story of a UFO that lands, and instead of taking the people and subjecting them to anal probes and such things, it came into the house and pulled out what looked like a dish of pancakes. And, and offered to share them, with the people. Yeah, with syrup and everything.
That's some non-alien activity.
Yeah, well, I thought that was interesting. Probably one of the more close encounters I've heard of.
Oh, boy.
I can't believe they have a kitchen on these UFOs.
Oh, yeah. What do you think What do you think they have?
I don't know. They probably have something that manufactures instantly, like a 3D model printer, but it's actually whatever their sustenance or food, or they take gobs of vitamins once a day, or who knows?
Yeah, I know. It could
What
be
do they
infinite?
eat?
Whatever they want.
Yeah.
I breathe whatever I want.
The alien that was at Area 51, they said, liked ice cream. The
alien, the unidentified being.
Ice cream?
The
aliens liked ice cream?
And that's all it would eat, would ice cream. And it lasted for a couple of years, I guess.
Jeez, I wonder what flavor. What do you think? I mean, Rocky Road.
No, I think it was vanilla. It just
vanilla,
like vanilla.
Just straight vanilla?
Yeah.
Vanilla alien. He's a straight vanilla alien. Well, it seems to be a cry for citizen science on this whole issue.
Yeah, well, this article was in a citizen science newspaper called Patch.com. So
okay. Well, there it is.
It was a very thorough list of California sightings of UFO if you want to check it out on the drfutureshow.com.
Yeah, this is start page. People are starting to track it all. It's starting to make patterns. It's going to get interesting as we approach what you might call, Kurzweil calls the singularity, Art Bell calls the quickening.
All right. Well, enjoy your UFO day, folks.
Bobby,
we're
what do
going to
you
go have some news at the top of the hour.
I think
we're going to be off in 15 seconds.
Okay. They're here to watch the big transformation on the Earth.
The transformation. Okay, the planetary transformation.
Yes.
That's going to happen.
All right. Be right back. You're live.
I will continue with space news.
Space news.
Yes. Remember how Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, invested in a company that was supposed to capture debris from low Earth orbit and deorbit it, sort of like space debris collecting machines?
Yes, right. I do remember he was setting up some kind of weird satellite trash collector.
Well,
right.
I think it was Privateer. I think it's
Privateer. There you go.
In military news this week on Space News, there's a startup from that universe called Turion, Turion, Turion Space. And they're developing a collection of satellites that will autonomously dock at dead satellites and deorbit them. They offer deorbiting services.
Right. Well, that's really interesting. That's kind of the tugboat of space, right? Make sure that these things burn up in the atmosphere or at least land in the ocean.
Yeah, the police tugboats. Uh-huh. They'll do data collection. They'll decide which satellites to grab, and then they'll move them. They have parking orbits where they can temporarily put them for a while, and then they have ones where they drop them into the Earth's atmosphere and burn
the
up.
original parking meter in space, huh?
Yeah. Should you go into the lot? Yeah, they go into the lot for 45 days, and then they get dropped onto the Earth, and they become a pretty sight for people to see.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So the mothership maneuvers and lets the droid ships know where to go. So there is literally a mothership that runs a fleet of these tow trucks in space.
It's sort of like waste management, right?
In a way, that too. Tow
they
trucks,
go out
waste
and
management.
collect the trash once a week and
yes.
bring it back to the depot.
Right.
Try and save the good stuff. Recycle.
So they've been funded. The first satellite is called Droid.001. It's a 32-kilo spacecraft, and it's designed for situational awareness. In other words, it's a spy satellite.
Yeah, spying on space trash.
Situational awareness. Who are you kidding me? Situational awareness is really paying attention to what's going on right next to you, too. Like you go up to a dead Russian satellite, Chinese satellite, and see if it's worth anything. See if you can get any data out of it.
There you go.
Right? I mean, it's
Sanford
value
and Son
is not
in
just
space.
Value is these days is not just its metals in silicon, but the memory and how it works, what frequencies it's paying attention to, how is it able to descramble our signals, all that kind of stuff.
I see.
Right?
These
So
are kind of smart trash collectors.
These startups know where to get the money from in order to finance their cleanup operations. Shall we say.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
they're promising big.
Yeah. And
Would you call it overpromise so they can underdeliver?
well, in these speculative areas, the R&D, it's easy to get away with more in terms of, I didn't know that was going to happen kind of response to things. Because you don't, because you're playing with the edge more. And space is hard. So to create a way in which you can clean up the garbage in low Earth orbit is not a trivial thing. Look how hard it is just to create a robot that can pack your groceries.
Look how hard it is to
Yeah.
get to that part of the ecosphere.
Yeah. It's hard stuff. And to be able to do it, now to get there and then to be able to operate when you're there, it's a huge deal. Interestingly enough, this droid .001 is also funded partly by NASA.
NASA is the big coordinator of all the technology going up to space.
Quite a bit of it, that's true. And they are working with more and more private industries to help explore the possibilities.
Yeah.
But the space debris problem has been a big one, and this is part of the solution to that. At least that's the way they're presenting it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they're basically sending up these little propulsion systems that will just start jettisoning. They'll attach themselves to a satellite that needs to be deorbited.
Yeah, I think of them as they're like
steer it.
they're little insects that can fly around to different ships, land on them, and either deorbit them or find out what they know or bring them back to life. Or there'll be lots of different purposes for them. But they're a fleet of ships that can visit other satellites and do what they need. They could be doctors.
Sure.
They could be
the
spies.
Satellite traffic controllers.
The mobile, insect-like, small spacecraft. The garbage collectors in space don't have to be big garbage machines like we have here on Earth that collects all the garbage from everyone's house. No. It's more like it can push a satellite in a certain way and move it to a deorbiting orbit or to a storage area for a while. It's more about its ability to move the other ones in terms of its size. So
Space sweeper.
Space sweeper, can be relatively small and be good at its job. Turion Space, so far they've raised about $20 million in venture capital. And a former SpaceX propulsion engineer co-founded the company, Westerdahl with Tyler James Pierce and Patrick Witter. In Space News Venture Startups on UFO Day, we have our garbage collectors starting to do their job.
It's a whole generation. It used to be that people would get interested in technology and they'd soup up their hot rod cars. Now they're souping up their space missions, right?
Yeah. And what's nice about near Earth orbit is that you can have your control panels at home. You could be comfortably in your living room. And your Starlink could be a link to actually playing with real moving objects.
Oh, so your virtual world is actually your remote control, huh?
Yeah, you have a remote control of a dozen satellites, or at least one for starters, that you can control from your living room. That's what's possible. That's probably what will happen.
I know that's something you've been fixated on, is to have control over a little drone light show. I mean, I guess that's analogous because you have your local controller and you've got your device out there, beyond arm's reach.
I see space as something that's creatively we can play with.
New turf.
Yeah. And most of it's not being used by much. I think some large group gaming scenarios could happen with real space objects. You're playing around with them. Of course, you need to be conscious of not causing any harm to the planet or the people on it. And the rules of low Earth orbit gaming need to be defined. But I can see it as something that's technically feasible and could be a lot of fun.
So you're talking about gaming with remote control satellites?
Yeah, where satellites represent actual objects that you're controlling from your home. They're low enough Earth, it's only a couple hundred miles, so that the latency delay wouldn't be a big problem in terms of remote control. It gets to be a problem when you're on the moon, where is it a second and a half? It's really hard to be spontaneous with a second and a half delay in your ability to control a remote body, a robot. But here, it could be huge. Earth Orbit Gaming Commission would be formed, and maybe I'll do a little story about this. Now that I've got these AI tools, I just did a story we submitted to a film festival last night that is an idea not along these lines, but on this level.
Yeah, Dr. Future has produced yet another AI-assisted short film.
Yeah, yeah. We'll put the link in our site here. But
fleshing out some of his creative ideas for the world to see.
Low Earth, cleaning it up first, I agree. We should clean up Low Earth orbit. We've made a mess out of it. We've got a lot of junk there. We should clean it up. Then we can throw some group games there.
All right. I take it you don't want to bring up this user input.
Okay, user input. This is
Something
huge.
completely different.
Thanks. I thought Low Earth orbit gaming was huge. I think it could be huge. What are you talking about? Oh, the Supreme Court. Oh, great.
Your least favorite subject.
Well, no, I just feel the law is very antiquated and is really worshiping the past.
Well, and it's so interesting that we've got all this focus on people making the laws. Meanwhile, the laws don't seem to be applied to anybody in government anyway.
No, because that's not where the life is.
Well, and
laws try to keep up with life.
It might be the sign of a free country that the people in power think they're free, but they think if they can put some laws out, then people who don't know that they're free will just follow them. Maybe that's how it works.
Oh, is that what freedom is in America? Oh, I didn't know. Jeez. All right, Supreme Court, Biden tells doctors to provide emergency abortions.
That's the story. That's sent in on our text feed.
Who's that from?
Someone who's concerned about...
I was cleaning up the garbage in space, the abortion ruling. Well, I know it's really important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
It's defining. It really is. It's defining the age that we're in. As technology changes the landscape of what we do with our time and how we pay attention and what's important in education, the practice of abortion and the laws affecting abortion are a direct expression of the power of women. And so the way that the interpretation and then the pushback unfolds is very much about the future of power for women.
My understanding is that a lot of women doctors don't want to work in states where anti-abortion laws have been enacted.
Right. Yeah, we were just reading about that, about how if you put this decision back to the states, in the states
reduce the medical quality of those states.
Right. And the logic in the article was that people don't realize that a lot of the current population of young doctors is women. There's a much higher percentage of women now than there was in the past. So a lot of the doctors that exist in some of these places where they're pursuing rather antiquated versions of law will have old doctors that are going to retire, and these old doctors are not going to be replaced by young women doctors, because the young women are going to choose to go to states that honor the rights of women. So anybody who doesn't keep up is going to be left behind.
Yeah. So what are we supposed to do about it? Let it happen, right?
Well,
I mean, everyone's going to learn their lessons from...
Definitely emerging history. I mean, it's definitely one of the things that we watch as people who feel like we're from the future. This 2 steps forward, 4 steps back phenomenon around the power of women is just jaw-dropping. But I suppose that's how real progress is made. Real progress is made where there's a shock to the system.
Well, look, somehow all that information about anti-abortion and pro-life or pro-abortion has been going on for 50 years, and still there is a reaction and control that reverses that. Now, why? Has not half of the country learned what the other half has learned? Is there something missing here in terms of understanding what life is?
Landscape. Okay, the eternal question is what nurtures life and what makes life worth living. I mean, those questions will never go away. But the modern questions are, do we use human technology to intervene or not? Those are the kind of questions that are concerning to people now. We're messing with the gene. We're messing with surgery that can determine when life begins. We're doing things where we're inserting our humanity into realms which previously were considered divine. So it's a new conversation.
It's new territory, and think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the big shift spiritually, of course, is thinking of it as all divine.
That's true. It's all divine.
It's just missing that little final piece.
That's right. Well, that really flattens the hierarchy.
It does. It does. It doesn't mean it goes away. It just means it goes away for those that totally get it.
Yeah.
So there's a combination of people with different conflicting belief systems and different lessons to learn, all living in the same physical space-time. Welcome to our society. But because we have better communications, ideas can be passed along more easily, and they can be easily faked, but in that process, we're learning how to make it better by using the fake information to fine-tune our ability to know the truth.
Can't argue with that.
Eli Lilly has a new drug.
Oh, new drugs. You are very interested in drugs, aren't you?
Well, drugs are a part of the being here on this planet, biochemistry.
And especially in the modern culture, we listen to the comedy special of someone who's now one of my favorite comedians, Hannah Einbinder, right?
Yeah.
A big part of
she's
her
hilarious.
comedy was about the fact that the ADD generation of kids have all been given Adderall. They've all been given all kinds of drugs to affect their moods and affect their consciousness. And the way that they relate to the pharmacy industry is certainly very different than the way I relate to it. They have no resistance, and in fact, they want to be smart shoppers, but they definitely want to shop. They want to get a hold of whatever drugs they can for whatever kind of physical or mood-altering behavior they can. And so they are the audience for this Eli Lilly, for instance.
Well, no, Eli Lilly is focusing on one of the big diseases of our time, Alzheimer's, which is fairly new. It's not been as big as it has been now.
You mean the drug or the spread of
disease,
Alzheimer's? How many people have Alzheimer's?
Yes,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so this is a donemab, D-O-N-A.
Can you point to the word? I'll take a guess at it.
M-A-B. Donna, like Donna Nem.
Okay.
Donna Nembab.
Say that 3 times.
That's the new
came up
drug.
with that name, right?
That went through a focus group, really?
Yeah, I like Donemab. Perfect for trying to remember.
Donemab. Donemab.
Yeah, so.
Whenever it ends with the MAB, it means it's a monoclonal antibody.
Oh, okay.
And so what it's doing, this monoclonal antibody is targeting the amyloid betas and the tau tangles, these misfolded proteins in the brain that causes Alzheimer's.
And the amyloid. Now, that reminds me, there's been a lot of controversy in the news lately about the amyloids. Apparently, there was some major paper that had been doctored back from 2008 or so.
Right.
Are you familiar with that? Sort of showed that the amyloid model of understanding Alzheimer's may not be what's actually going on after all.
Yes, I read that one too. And it could be some other process that we're just not aware of.
Yeah.
It could be prions that are causing Alzheimer's. There could be, I really think it has to do with the mitochondria in the neurons, and that as you get older, the powerhouse of the neuron, the mitochondria, they just slowly stop working. And so there's research where you can take a methylene blue and it reactivates some of these older mitochondria and they start working again. And
memory improves.
People start, memory improves.
Yeah.
So there's different approaches.
Yeah,
but,
I was fascinated myself with the psychological studies that show that frame of your attitude towards the disease affected how well you did.
Yeah.
It seems like more positivity did make a difference in this case.
Yeah.
It's fascinating what's going on with this. And I think Doc Wallach was saying that they had an epidemic of this 40 years ago in veterinary world, and they solved it because they couldn't have flocks of sheep forgetting where they were, not coming back to the barn at night and stuff like that. They had to figure out how to deal with that. He was able to treat it purely through food, shift in a diet.
Yeah.
And he's talking actively about that these days. Certain vegetable oils, and certain kinds of sugar. Fascinating. But this latest drug from Eli Lilly is in its final phase of FDA review. Even though it's not guaranteed it's going to approve, it probably will be approved by the end of the year. This might make the difference for some.
They did try this approach before, and what was happening was these Alzheimer's patients were getting encephalitis. Their brains were swelling up because the monoclonal antibodies were attaching to the amyloid proteins, and they couldn't flush them out enough. And it was kind of plugging up the system, and their brains were swelling up a little bit. So hopefully this one doesn't have that problem.
Yeah. I assume when everyone thought that the amyloid plaque was a problem, there's a huge focus put on how to get rid of amyloid plaque in the brain, right? There's a lot of work on that.
Scrub your plaque from your head.
And then, from what I remember, is some of them were really good at getting rid of it, but it didn't seem to make much difference.
Because it wasn't quite
It wasn't about
related.
the plaque anyway.
It wasn't the problem.
Yeah, right. But now we know a lot about washing out plaque from the brain.
We just don't know how to make the brain keep working.
Yeah, what is it that's really... I guess the deeper mysteries of how the brain works is definitely always taking us outside of our realm of what we actually know.
There was that work out of MIT and Harvard where they were flashing lights at 40 cycles a second, and it was actually activating the glial cells, which in your brain you don't have an immune system. You have a kind of like a roto-rooter flush-out system where it takes things that shouldn't be in the brain and flushes them out.
Right,
through,
it uses your lymph. And I guess
lymph
there's
glands.
a certain point where your lymph pressure goes down and another point where your lymph pressure goes up, and that cycle of pressure is what moves the fluids through your brain.
They were taking rats, and then they took people, and they just flash 40 cycles a second, and the glial cells start pumping, or they start synchronizing all together, and they start flushing out the amyloids out of the brain.
Hilarious. So they got good at flushing the amyloids. So that's...
So maybe if they combine this with the 40 hertz light frequency, it also works with sound. They were using headphones, and if you have this low frequency, it also works just as well as the light at 40 cycles.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder about that. I wonder about the electromagnetics and its effect on disease as well.
You know, there's all that talk about the quantum consciousness where it's actually these microtubules, and there's actually ultraviolet going down these tubules, and when the light actually changes from a particle to a wave, that it collapses the quantum state, and that's what gives consciousness. You know? And
it's a great...
It came up with a model,
Is it Pennington?
It is based on the machine.
Penrose and
Yes.
Hameroff.
Yeah, Hameroff. Right, yeah, Stuart Hameroff. I've heard
exactly.
about this. That's fascinating. We got to go to a break. We'll be right back. We're talking with Bobby Wilder
on Santa Cruz Voice.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants, and at Treehouse Dispensary, we use it to build community. In addition to dispensing cannabis and education, Treehouse hosts First Friday events every month that feature our community's local artists, makers, and activists. If you're 21 plus, join us at 3651 Soquel Drive every First Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. to enjoy the work of local artists and musicians, find one-of-a-kind gifts, and learn more about the top cannabis products in California. See you soon!
Attention content producers, you can have access to a complete digital media production facility at Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on SoCal Avenue near downtown Santa Cruz. Rent video and audio equipment, a studio with green screen, editing suite, and audio booth, all at Can't Say No rates. Schedule a tour to see for yourself at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
Listen and be heard. You can support one of America's first local news and talk streaming radio stations, SantaCruzVoice.com. Your support will help build the Voice's streaming infrastructure and maintain the programming of its 34 local broadcasters. Your support will help build a radio station that you will be truly proud of. Please go to SantaCruzVoice.com and click support. Thank you.
Hi, folks. How many of you out there love to garden? Wouldn't it be nice to grow some of your own food? Or maybe a flower garden would brighten your day. All you need is the Knox Garden Box, a heavily constructed, portable, elevated garden on legs that can virtually change the way you've gardened in the past. The Knox Garden Box can be set up anywhere. Yes, you can place it right on concrete at knoxgardenbox.com. That's KNOX, gardenbox.com.
Okay, welcome back to the show. This idea that our planet is going through a black hole.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Billy. Sent that one in.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to make of that.
Well, it's a new take on energy,
Yeah.
right? Dark matter. It's a dark matter shower.
Dark matters as usual.
Yes.
Coming back in again. There might be dark matter clouds that we're passing through as we spin through the galaxy.
Yeah, our planet's being battered by waves of dark matter. 27% of the universe, they're guessing. Although
I've heard up to 85%.
they still haven't observed it directly.
Right. How much do we really know what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the 87 is the dark energy.
Okay.
And 27 is the dark matter stuff. Yeah.
Dark matter.
All it is dark matter is a placeholder for a name of something we can't.
So it's not a real thing.
It doesn't interact with light, so we don't have any experiments to understand it and characterize it.
Yeah, we don't have the instruments to detect it.
Right.
And we're trying to come up.
Yeah,
as soon as
we've done some stories where there's some theories of universe where it doesn't even exist, that it can be accounted for without having to resort to the unknown dark matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So being dark matter as being as it is, it's not fully defined yet, so it can do all kinds of weird and mysterious things. So I'm not surprised it's become a major creativity play zone for astronomers to think about exotic dark matter, black holes and such.
This is a classic kind of article in futurism.com that gives you some of the language that's being kicked around by modern physicists. So, for instance, dark matter, when they proved that the God particle existed, they say, yay, the standard model works, but they've been noticing that the standard model only covers like 15% of the known universe, and they are struggling to figure out what the rest of it is, right? And so that's where the dark matter comes in, and the things that they're talking about is, well, what does dark matter look like? How big is it? What does it act like? How can we imagine interacting with it? And so some scientists have proposed that it might be extremely massive particles, and they're called weakly interacting massive particles, or WIMPs.
WIMPs, yes. And then there's the ionized particles that interact with the hypothetical dark matter.
Uh-huh.
Don't forget those.
Right. And so we can see the ions, but we don't know why they're doing what they're doing.
But here's the interesting thing. One scientist says, quote, an electrically small dipole antenna targeting the generated radio waves can be orders of magnitude more sensitive to dark photon and axion-like particle dark matter.
Oh, sounds like you should get one.
In
Would
the
you like
relevant
an
mass
electrically small dipole antenna?
Well, it keeps me in mind is that the idea that the universe might be creating all kinds of weird-ass antennas out there, including small dipole wave generators that communicate with dark matter or are made out of dark matter. Ideas like that show that antennas just might be more of a universal concept than we realize.
Well, with all these satellites, we should be able to get up to the ionosphere and check it out, right? Yeah. Apparently, that's where we have the best chance of having our antenna interact with the radio waves that might illuminate dark matter for us.
And that does remind me that SpaceX is attempting to explore an area where humans have not been since the Apollo project.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about SpaceX.
This is a new SpaceX called the Polaris Dawn mission. Mm-hmm. And it's trying to hit several new milestones in our explorations of space, like traveling 800 miles out.
Oh, yeah. SpaceX, the current satellites of the Starlink system are all orbiting at like about 200 miles up, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so now this next flight is going to go towards the North Pole, and it's going to go 800 miles up.
Yes. Oh, one comment just before we get into this. Thanks, Bobby. That's a great article. Bobby sent me an article on is your DNA an EMF antenna?
Yeah. So we're talking about very small dipolar antennas, like in the molecular level.
Exactly.
And apparently certain frequencies can get the DNA to actually change or produce RNA and proteins differently just based on radio waves that your
EMF.
What does an antenna do in that?
There can be EMF control frequencies for adjusting EMF
does it
control.
Amplify?
Yeah, it resonates. It starts jiggling at the frequency of
specific frequencies.
Radio frequencies.
Yes.
So when you're talking about this dark energy and these micro dipolar antennas, your DNA is made up of these tiny antennas.
Yeah, so they would probably.
So maybe we interact with this dark matter in a way that we're just not aware of.
We can swim through it.
That they're a piece to understanding the ecosystem in which we are. Yeah. So in other words, it's not a mystery to some part of ourselves how we interact with dark matter through these dipole antennas, perhaps. We'll have to investigate this a little further. Thank you, Bobby. Okay,
so
back to
now we're talking about
SpaceX.
Polaris Dawn mission.
Yeah, 800
SpaceX.
miles above the Earth. 800 miles. Most of our space explorations have been the 200 to 300 mile range for humans. So this is a huge jump beyond the International Space Station.
All right, well, tell us all about it.
Well, it was originally scheduled for 2022, or originally announced. They're going to be pushing how far out into space we can be. It's privately funded. There's a billionaire named Jared Isaacman who has bankrolled this mission. And its date has been pushed back a few times, but it's set to launch now by July 12th, coming right up, 2024.
Oh, boy, next week.
Besides going to 800 miles, they're also going to try to do a spacewalk. Now, that might not seem so unusual, but it's the first spacewalk by a commercial company.
A private team.
Private space.
Their own private spacesuits.
Right, with their own design spacesuits, exactly.
They're going to be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Absolutely. Or it's off-world records, I guess, at this point.
Off-world records. Well, I don't
Guinness
know.
Book of off-world
if
records.
you walk, I mean,
Yeah.
they walked in spacesuits on the moon, so that's quite a bit further. But I guess this will be in actual space.
800 miles out. It's also an opportunity for the Starship research to be done, because this is an early pathfinder for the Starship spacecraft, which SpaceX has been working on now for some time. We've been talking about that. The Starship 4, I think, was the last one that was launched.
I see. So they're going to go up and see what the space is like 800 miles up.
Yes, it's a place where Starship will be comfortable and at home in. But first we need to know more about that space. And so
like, does it radiate us?
Yeah, what kind of radiation exists up there, for example? Always a good thing to ask. Well, how are we radiated for these parts?
Well, it says the crew is going to spend about 5 days in orbit, flying so high above our planet that it'll actually pass through the Van Allen radiation belts.
That's right. That's the other thing, is that they'll be exploring the radiation of the Van Allen radiation
No one's gone
belts.
through that since the Apollo program.
That's right. Very energetic particles trapped in our magnetic field.
Yeah.
But they'll take advantage of that. They know they're going to go through the Van Allen radiation belt, so they'll be collecting medical data to better understand how that radiation impacts us.
Yeah, I've been wondering what they have to use materially on their suits to resist that kind of radiation issues.
They'll be finding that out. They're also looking at how to measure the gas bubbles in your blood.
Oh, right. It's
the
like
bends.
when you're surfacing from deep pressure.
Decompression sickness.
Yeah, decompression going to deep space.
I guess that is one of the issues in space, gas bubbles in your blood.
Oh, look at, and what about the issues with your eyes in microgravity?
Oh, yes, yes.
You get glaucoma?
Well, go ahead.
It seems like if you have zero gravity, not only that, but also less pressure, then
all your fluids will start to bubble. Right?
The pressure
and
goes down.
it's nitric oxide that forms bubbles in your blood system, in your plasma. And when it forms those bubbles, then the platelets and red blood cells don't get to move as well, and you get the bends, like those divers, and they come up too fast out of the water. They get the bends, and then they have to put them in these hyperbaric chambers to actually compress them back down to reduce the bubbles, and then slowly bring them up in atmosphere.
Right.
Now, this might be a Rosanna Dana moment for me, but doesn't nitric oxide have something to do with the active element of Viagra?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It is.
And
good.
Yeah, what it does, it dilates your blood vessels. And so that's what gives you a hard-on, it's just when you dilate
blood
your
vessels.
Yes, but it's also helpful for people with glaucoma. If you could dilate the blood vessels that feed the neurons in the back of the retina to the brain, if you can dilate those, then you can get more nutrients, and then it reduces the effect of glaucoma on the eyes.
Wow. So if you can keep your
so
nitric oxide
is good.
Yeah,
Good.
and I know that a lot of people after COVID have very low energy and fatigue, and a lot of them are also being suggested that they supplement with
That's
nitric
interesting.
oxide.
Yeah, I was Dr. Dan
Exactly.
gave me some nitric oxide to take every day.
Right, for vascular issues.
Yeah, to have more innervation of my feet, because I'm feeling a little numb at the tips of my toes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the guy that got the Nobel Prize back in the late 90s had discovered the effect of nitric oxide on the blood vessels and
my toes are feeling more, and it's great. Thing is the toes not the only thing that's feeling more. It seems to be working in terms of vascularization.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Oh, Robert F. Scott. I just looked it up.
Yeah. So the microgravity experiments with the ocular system is being studied out there as well, because astronauts typically have some issues with blurry vision. So there's one of the crew members is going to be a guinea pig for a way of measuring spinal fluid pressure in space, where he'd be measuring a mechanism that's surgically implanted in him before the flight.
So this is Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Scott Kidd Poteet.
Yes. That's right.
The guinea pig.
Lieutenant Colonel is the guinea pig. Mm-hmm. And they'll be measuring that. And also they're looking at non-invasive techniques as well. But that's how important it is to see what's going on with that pressure.
Right. What's happening with the pressure on your spinal fluid? Can we keep your spine solid?
Yeah,
when
it
you're
could
in
be.
0G?
It could be that humans are not designed to be in space for more than a year or two.
Well, we're designed to be in a gravity well.
Yeah.
So as long as we can bring our gravity well with us, we can probably endure space.
Yeah. And as much as I love spaceships and UFOs and such, portals, I'd be willing to jump through portals instead, flying in metal ships. Wouldn't you?
Well, we don't know what
easy
happens in the
travel to
portals either.
Other planets.
You'd rather dissolve into your light body and then reassembled on the other side?
Well, I guess that's a crude way to think about it.
Well, what do you think happens in the portal? You think it's just a tunnel?
Yeah, you just walk through and you just change. Who knows? Nothing happens.
Sort of like caving?
Yeah, it's all invisible. What do you care? You're just you again. You just have a zero moment.
I believe you. I think that's what the Shakyamuni principle is, right?
Well,
You
that's
just-
the thing. If you don't mind...
You don't need to be in this physical body if your light body's just as good.
I can understand your concern. That was first expressed by Dr. McCoy in the original Star Trek.
What did he say?
He never did like transporter beams.
Uh-huh.
He just didn't like having his atoms scattered throughout the universe and then coming back together again. Something just didn't agree with him. Having your molecules scattered. You go away for a moment, any kind of process like that, but you come back again. You got to trust that you're going to come back. In some ways, I guess the modern approach would be is going into surgery and you have to go unconscious and you don't know if you're going to come back or not. There might be that kind of fear.
Here, I got the quote.
Yeah.
Leonard McCoy.
Okay.
I signed aboard this ship to practice medicine, not to have my atoms scattered back and forth across space by this gadget.
That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's very good. I would rather have that kind of experience than having to deal with nitrous oxide and the bends in my blood and stuff like that. It didn't sound like...
Well, these are the early days, right,
Yeah.
Captain Nimoy?
Yeah, that's true.
We still have to invent a few spacesuits for you.
We do.
That'll
We're still
make
at the
it
beginning.
comfortable and satisfying.
That's the other thing, is they're testing out a newly designed extravehicular activity spacesuit. And that could be so exciting. They want to, what's the best suit you can wear in experiencing the deadly vacuum of space?
And the Van Allen radiation belt.
That's right. NASA's are a bit bulky, kind of not
What does
exactly
safe
a fashion
space
statement.
wear look like?
You want more flexibility. You want it to be the more figure, more show off your figure a little more.
There was a really great episode about spacesuits on one of my favorite podcasts called Huge If True. With our host Cleo. I don't even know her last name, but she's a
great.
bright
She's
light.
one of the science,
really fun.
Cleo, the science girl. Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, huge if true.
So another thing that they're going to be testing is a new Starlink system that will be working from 800 miles up.
What's it supposed to do? Say?
They're not saying. They're not saying
Oh,
yesterday,
it's
but,
just new.
I would say that when you start getting up there, you're going to start thinking about cross-communication between these millions of gadgets that will be in Earth orbit.
Well, I imagine
It'll
that
become
the
populated.
radio field that the signal has to transverse is very different up by the North Pole and very different part of the magnetosphere. So they'll probably have to redesign the Starlinks if we're going to be communicating from that part of the orbit of the Earth.
Yeah, we will. We'll definitely be changing our Starlink behaviors. So they've been training for this mission for years now. Skydiving, high-altitude mountaineering, centrifuge training, just like real astronauts from NASA. You know? So they're getting ready to go. And this will be, they want to have social media on board, so they want to stay in communication with everyone and have all of humanity involved.
Oh, that's good. I'll follow
them. To the
them.
moon, to the Mars. They want to be the front end. And I guess they'll be our contact with the frontier as it moves forward.
All right. So where are we at here? This is the Polaris Dawn mission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing, we've all heard to the nth degree the stuff about the debate, right? I do have a link from Politico where it covered an unusual angle of the presidential debates where it looked at the body language. They had a body language expert study the two presidents.
I don't know if it's the same body language expert, but Dr. Phil remember Oprah Winfrey's friend, yeah. Dr. Phil?
Of course.
He did some incredible interviews with the candidates, all three. Yeah. Of course, I consider Robert F. Kennedy to also be a candidate in the running.
Sure.
And Dr. Phil had this incredible extended coverage after the debates where this body language interpreter was on hand, was taking a look. I wonder if this is the same guy.
Well, this guy was an FBI agent for 25 of the last 50 years. And he also is somebody who's just personally fascinated with politicians and how they twist the truth. And he's saying that after studying body language for so long, that it doesn't lie.
Oh,
and he
boy.
watched the whole debate first with the sound off to see the two contenders, what they were really thinking and feeling.
Mm-hmm. And what did he conclude?
Well, I'll tell you. First of all, they were thinking and feeling quite a lot that they left unsaid.
Well, that goes without
right.
saying.
But decoding their body language. It's an interesting article. I highly recommend clicking it. First of all, there was no handshake.
Oh, those guys don't like each other. It's pretty obvious.
No handshake, right? They didn't do that. That's a tradition that's been going, that some baggage, lack of handshake. Didn't surprise him, though. That kind of shows him that the election.
Well, it's very un-American to be such poor sports. You know?
It's a divisive move not to handshake.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And he said Biden had entered the room first, then his stiff walk with a short, narrow stride immediately showed his age.
Mm. Yeah, he was probably trying hard to not mess that up.
But it's not necessarily a cataclysmic sign of mental decline.
Yeah.
He says, as we age, we lose the nerves that keep our balance. The Merkel, Messier, and Ruffini and Pacinian nerve cells just below the skin. That's the ones that are robust to delicate touches and pressure changes. That you lose sensation as you get older. And that can cause your gait to be affected. He analyzed a lot of that. And the first thing he noticed about Trump, he said, was his tan. He says that might sound superficial, but if you go look back to like when Nixon was debating Kennedy in 1960, Nixon had this 5 o'clock shadow and no makeup, pale. And then here was John Kennedy, young, tanned, with makeup, just stands out. In a similar way, he said that look-wise, Biden looked as white as a sheet next to tan Trump.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah. He says that
doesn't
people
look too bad.
just intuit healthy vitality, energy to a tan face.
Well, we know that these guys they probably have makeup artists.
Yeah, it is true. Biden does look pale, like older pale, compared to Trump's. I guess it's tan or it's makeup. I don't know, but
well, probably. But I don't think. Well, he's been a reality TV star for years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, makeup is nothing for him.
Right.
Yeah. Body language speaks volumes. But he said that Biden's volume had a lot of blank pages. He says, as we age, our gestures become more economical. Biden's nonverbal communication did nothing to counter that narrative that his age is catching up with him there.
I thought Biden just looked like he was constantly annoyed and amazed that Trump would be speaking things that he thought were so outrageous.
Tired voice. He said there was a tiredness in the voice when he listened to that. That carries through. And that if it was a cold, they should have admitted it right up the front. Eyelid flutters. He looked at eyelid flutters. And Biden flutters his eyes when he makes a mistake.
Yeah, that's true.
And with the sound off, you can tell when he's stumbling over a word by the way he flutters his eyes.
Oh, that's interesting. As a stutterer,
Yeah,
that's
also
not too
stutterers
surprising.
do that as well.
Yeah, I think people who like Biden are used to forgiving that.
Yeah.
Right.
And he said Trump, eyelid flutter meant something entirely different. It was less an expression of inward frustration than it was outward disdain. He
How
says,
very Trump. Hey, you know what? We're down to our last 2 minutes.
okay,
Just want
one sentence there. He said he looked like Jack Nicholson's character in A Few Good Men, fluttering his eyes whenever he got a challenging question on the witness stand.
Oh, sort of like licking his chops before going in for the kill, huh?
And when Trump doesn't like something, his eyelids come down hard and linger in a downcast position. It's an interesting article. I suggest you do it. Just it's kind of fun. They have the little clips of the debate demonstrating these ideas. It's on our Politico article, Body Language Expert. So thanks again for everyone tuning in this week. Thanks for putting up with our
technical challenges,
techie challenges as we go through this heat wave. Stay cool, stay comfortable, and keep on keeping on.
Keep looking up.
Yeah. Thank you, Bobby, for being here. Appreciate your attention.
Yeah.
We have a couple of new guests coming in next week. We're taking a deep dive into QAnon, a friend of ours that disappeared into that world and managed to come out of it.
Yeah, an author of a new book.
Yeah, she's written a book about her experiences.
Wow.
So, quite fascinating. And after that, we also have Luigi on scamming, on the latest scams that are happening to us all, and what to do about them. So, next week and the week after will be fun. So thanks again, everyone. Appreciate your attention.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, enjoy the 4th of July.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, happy 4th of July. Have a great future now, everybody.
Have a good weather. It'll be awesome. All right. Enjoy, folks.